In the heart of the first storm, when the sky was just learning to weep and rage, there lived a crow unlike any other. This wasn't the common bird you see pecking at scraps in city parks. No, this crow was born from the storm itself. His feathers were the deep, bruised purple of a thunderhead, and his eyes held the cold, hard glitter of lightning. When he flew, it wasn't just wind that rustled his wings. It was a crackle of raw and tamed electricity. He was a creature of power, a living conduit for the sky's fury. For him, the world was a vast, exhilarating dance of energy. He would perch on the tallest, most ancient oaks, letting the static build around him until sparks jumped from his beak to the rain-slaked bark. He saw himself as the master of this electric realm, the dark king of the tempest. One day, as the sky churned with a particularly violent storm, something new appeared. It was born from the very thing the crow cherished most, his power. From a brilliant arc of lightning that split a nearby pine, a creature of pure luminescence materialized. It was a moth, but a moth of impossible beauty. Its wings were not made of dust and scale, but of woven light, pulsing with a soft, ethereal glow. Its antennae quivered, tasting the electric air. This was the light moth, a being drawn to energy, a creature that fed on brightness itself. It fluttered towards the crow, drawn by the corona of sparks that danced around his body. The crow watched, intrigued. He had never seen anything like it. It was so fragile, so brilliant, the moth, fearless, landed gently on the crow's outstretched wing. The moment it touched him, a tiny spark leapt from the crow's feather to the moth's leg. Instead of recoiling, the moth seemed to thrive. Its glow intensified, the patterns on its wings becoming sharper, more intricate. The crow felt a strange sensation, not a loss of power, but a sharing of it. The moth was drinking his ambient energy, and in doing so, it became more radiant. A flicker of pride went through the crow. This beautiful creature existed because of him, fed by his might. He began to see the moth not as an intruder, but as a testament to his own magnificence. His storm-born power had given rise to this exquisite being of light. So they began a strange, symbiotic dance in the heart of the storm. The crow would summon his energy, letting arcs of lightning play across his wings, and the moth would flutter around him, feasting on the display. With every spark it consumed, the moth grew stronger, larger, its light so bright it could turn the storm's twilight into midday. The crow, in turn, felt a new sense of purpose. He wasn't just a vessel of chaotic energy anymore. He was a creator, a sustainer of light. He would fly through the churning clouds, the moth a radiant comet tailing him, a beacon in the gloom. They became a spectacle, the dark heart of the storm, and the brilliant soul it carried. Other creatures of the forest would hide from the thunder, but they would peek out to glimpse the impossible sight of the shadow bird and his star-bright companion. But over time, a subtle shift began. The crow started to notice that the admiration of the forest creatures was directed more and more at the moth. They whispered of its beauty, its gentle light that held the terrifying darkness of the storm at bay. They no longer spoke of the crow's power, but of the moth's radiance. The pride the crow once felt began to curdle into something else, something sharp and cold. He was the source, the powerful one. The moth was just a parasite, a beautiful parasite, but a parasite nonetheless. It was his energy, his storm, his stage. The moth was stealing his light, both literally and figuratively. The feeling grew, a dark seed of resentment planting itself in his storm cloud heart. He was the king, and this dazzling subject was starting to look too much like a rival. One evening, as the most formidable storm he had ever witnessed gathered on the horizon, the crow made a decision. The sky was a canvas of deep indigo and violent magenta, a promise of immense power. Tonight, he would show everyone who was truly master. He would reclaim his glory. He called to the moth, his call no longer a simple bird call, but a command that echoed with the rumble of distant thunder. The moth, ever trusting, fluttered to him, its light a joyful, pulsating welcome. It expected another grand display, another feast of energy, but the crow had a different plan. He looked at the brilliant creature, its glow illuminating the subtle fear that was beginning to dawn in its crystalline eyes. Tonight, the crow seemed to say, "We fly higher than ever before." With a powerful beat of his wings, the crow shot upwards, not across the sky, but straight into the roiling heart of the storm clouds. He climbed and climbed, the air growing colder, the electricity more intense. The moth followed, its light a desperate beacon against the suffocating darkness of the clouds. But this was the crow's domain. Here, in the belly of the tempest, he was absolute. He began to draw on the storm's power not to display it, but to consume it. He pulled the lightning into himself, swallowing the flashes before they could fully bloom. He drank the ambient charge from the air, his feathers becoming so saturated with energy that they seemed to absorb the very concept of light. He was creating a void, a pocket of absolute darkness in the center of the storm's fury. The moth began to falter, its food source was vanishing. The sparks it fed on were being devoured by the crow, the ambient brightness of the storm was being extinguished. Its radiant wings began to dim, the vibrant patterns fading to a dull, milky white. It fluttered weakly, its flight becoming erratic, it was starving. The crow watched, a cold satisfaction filling him. He ascended further, into a place of pure, oppressive blackness he had forged. He was a black hole in the shape of a bird, draining all light, all energy, all hope. The moth let out a final, silent pulse of light, a flicker, a memory of its former glory, and then it was gone. It didn't fall, it simply ceased to be, its light form dissolving into nothingness in the absolute dark. The crow had won, he was alone again, unchallenged, the undisputed master of the storm. He hovered there for a moment in the perfect, silent darkness he had created. There was no crackle of electricity, no flash of light, only the muffled roar of the wind outside his void. He had proven his supremacy, but as he descended, breaking through the bottom of the cloud layer, something felt wrong. The exhilarating charge of the storm was gone, replaced by a heavy, hollow emptiness. The world below seemed muted, the colors less vibrant. He glanced down at his wings, expecting to see the familiar, powerful sheen of his storm-dark feathers. But they were different. Where the moth had so often perched, where its light had been the brightest, there were now stains. They weren't dirt or damage, but patches of shadow, a darkness deeper and more profound than the rest of his feathers, a darkness that seemed to drink the light around it. He tried to shake them off, to preen them away, but they were part of him now. He flew to a clear pool of water to see his reflection. Staring back at him was the crow, king of the storm, but his wings were marred by these permanent, lightless patches. They were echoes of the void he had created, a physical manifestation of the light he had extinguished. The victory felt bitter. The silence he had craved now felt like loneliness. He had reclaimed his power, but in doing so, he had tattooed the shadow of his envy onto his own wings. He was still the crow of the storm, but forever marked by the light he had destroyed. And from that day on, every time he flew, he carried the reminder of the beautiful creature he had sacrificed for his pride, a stain of darkness that no amount of lightning could ever burn away. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and fly back for more.